let me call on Director Hendricks, who wishes to address us on something.
Yes.
Director Hendricks?
Thank you, Mayor. I really wanted to thank you and Mr. Moore for sort of giving me some guidance on this email that I sent to all of you that had to do with the violence that occurred on the weekend. And I want to read this, if you don't mind. This goes to Mayor Mark Stoller, and it says, Mark, thanks for sharing with me the policy. Included was Mr. Moore, who did call me to let me know what it was. So I said, let's talk about the criminal activity this past weekend by minorities publicly. Yes, such activity will have a devastating impact on the city of Little Rock as a whole. As a minority, it is troubling to witness such violence and not demand open dialogue from each board member publicly today. Chief Buckner and the city manager need to hear from each of us publicly. And I said that it's all of this is happening, and we talk about, not me, but you hear this thing about black pride and all that stuff. But I think that we need to look at policies to change this, because if it's black pride out here, why are we killing like we're doing? And that's my question, and I know it would be difficult for you all to say that as Caucasians, but I want to let you know that I'm concerned about it, and I think that we all should be concerned about it. And what I did, I called over to State Capitol today to get a gist of, it's a new law. Well, it's not new. It's the one that has to do with what this act was passed, and it's called the Child Maltreatment Act, where you could not discipline your own child. That is the beginning of some of this stuff that we see. I think, Joan, you mentioned about the curfew. I think that we need to take a look at all of these laws, and we need to really get to the core of it by parents. I mentioned to Mr. Moore about the PIT program. Look at the money we spend on that program. And it's not to say that these individuals have been touched by the program, but if we're spending this kind of money and getting the results that we see and what we saw, something needs to be changed with that program. I'm not saying that money's going to fix it, but I would love to see us start at the grassroots level, which is a parent. I think that we need to talk about a law that would have an impact on the parents of these children. The 11-year-old, on a Sunday morning, these children should have been in church. If not at church, at home. And I know that you all won't say this, but I will say it. And I say this as I walk these streets of the city of Little Rock. Because like I tell them, I have no fear of nobody. The only person I fear is God. And I know that we can have an impact if we set new rules. I'm being redundant, that curfew law is not working. I see these policemen driving and they even pass by these kids that are on the streets. Well, they ought to be ticketing them or their parents or somebody. So I hope that you all will join with me in seeing what we can do. We need to pass stricter laws on these teenagers that are doing this killing, so we need to talk to the law enforcement people. I'll be the first to sign the paper of the joint. And I don't want to hear this thing about you doing it because they're black. I'm doing it because black is causing this problem, and I'm tired of it. Comments? Don't be scared.
Director Adcock, you're recognized, please.
Mayor, Sunday night I had the opportunity to be at the home of Mr. Lopez and his daughter, which is the father, the husband, and the mother of this child and the woman that was killed. We had about 150, 175 people that attended the vigil. And there was people from the community, people from the neighborhood, people from the Working Together and the community group and Southwest UPS. And it was a wonderful service that we had, and everyone felt that something, as you said, Director Hendricks, has to be done. Last night at Southwest UPS, where we usually have about 30 to 40 neighborhood people attending, and Mayor, you was there. We had close to probably 150 to 175, including the Mexican consulate. And again, the father and the child was there. Tomorrow morning at 9 o'clock at a church at 8923 Sunset Lane, a group of people are getting together from the community, business people, just a whole group of people are meeting, and they've got 4 questions. give me the four most important things that we need to do, how we're going to do them. And we're going to start looking at what we need to do. As the Latino pastor said that was there the other night, he said, quit blaming it on the school, quit blaming it on the parents, quit blaming it on the community. And he said, that's the person to blame. Each of us have a blame in this. And so that is kind of where we're starting on this. What can each of us do? Because it has to start with us. We can't say it's time that PIT did it, or that Mr. Moore did it, or the mayor did it, or anyone else. It's time that we all took a part in this and did it. And I think that we've all been sitting around waiting for someone to tell us what to do, and it's time that we all met together and start looking at what can we do. And I agree with Director Hendricks, lots of this has got to come from the home. I'm concerned about the curfew laws. I'm also concerned, my 16-year-old just got his driver's license, and I know that he is restricted with how many kids he has in the car and everything, and yet you drive down the street and you see very young people driving a car with a bunch of teenagers in the car with them. So I think that we all have got to ask serious questions. We have to look at the laws that we have, and if those laws are not working, then we have to find out why they're not working and how can we make them work for us in the community.
This will be my last comment. I did call and leave a message for Baker Curris because I think the school district needs to be involved. And I say that because during integration in 1957, when my children were the first blacks to go to the elementary schools, and it was a problem then, is that the teachers were expelling the children. So we need to find out how many people are being expelled, whether they're black or white, and I know most of them are black, I know that. That's one of our problems at the school district, is that these black boys are expelled from school because they're disrupting the class. But all of those things we need to address, we need to talk about it. If you all won't join me, I will do it because I've done it for 30 years.
Director Wright, you're recognized, please.
Thank you, Mayor. Director Hendricks, I applaud you for bringing this up and stating what needs to be stated. It is a hard thing to look at. I was tortured after I found this out. My mind keeps going to the fact, how could this have happened? What could have been going through their minds to make them take this action? What if that was my neighbor that happened to? And so I agree, something has to be done. And I agree with you too, Director Adcock, and I thank you for being with the family since you work very closely in that area. And I agree, we each have to take some responsibility for what's going on in our communities. And that's one of the reasons why for the past 11 years, I've been working to keep these kids engaged in some positive activities with their parents. And I do have 100% parental participation with these kids. And I know it's just sports. You can say, oh, that's just sports. Please, believe me, sports work. Because when they're in that park, I know exactly where they are. We don't have any bullying. We don't have any kids fighting. We don't have any of that. All my fields are fenced, so they're safe. And their parents are there with them. They have young African-American males coaching them, so they have some role models, too, to look at. So I'm encouraging positive behavior here. So, yeah, I stepped up. I don't even have kids. And mark me on this, I don't even like sports. But I've been doing this for 11 years because I know what I know, sports works. I know it works. I've seen it work. So all I can say is we have a serious problem here, and I just hope we don't have any violence break out between the Latino community and the African American community because of this. Because it was just, as in my mind, it's just senseless. How could you dare, at 15 years old or 16 years old, think about taking somebody's life? What did you think was going to happen? So, I mean, a part of my mind is confused about this because I can't imagine the thought processes that even led to something like this. So I am very much concerned, and I agree that we are putting a lot of money into this PIT, and that's why I wanted the Youth Master Plan to reevaluate what we are doing, to see what can be done in addition to this, because I think what you're going to probably find is there's a lack of parental support, there's a lack of supervision, there's a lack of mentors in the community and people that they can see that look like them. I guarantee you those are going to be our findings. So I am with you 100%. You let me know whatever you need me to do, I will do it, but I'm going to keep doing what I've been doing for the last 11 years. We had 1,200 kids last year, and I'm expecting that much more this year because we do have visibility now that the community center has broken ground and we got the new entryway. So I'm expecting to get even more kids off the street. And I applaud you for bringing this up, and thank you.
Vice Mayor Hines.
Thank you. Director Hendricks, I want to thank you for your comments. You're spot on and you're right. You can say some things that I probably can't. I also want to send my condolences to the Lopez family. Bruce, would you mind asking Chief Buckner, he's been very vocal in the press, to come and talk to us next week at the agenda meeting? Or 2 weeks, that'll be fine. That'll be fine. You know, and unfortunately, Director Richardson's not here, and you know, I serve on CYF and very big proponent of our PIT funds, but at some point we really have to look at enforcement and some type of zero tolerance. The culmination, and believe it or not, we have some assaults and some robberies going on in our parking lots of our retail stores out west. It's happened in the last 2 weeks. And the general thing I see when I read in the paper, it's our youth. It's these teenagers, these young adults, and it's not just the males. It's the females. We had an incident out west over the weekend with a robbery of there was some females that perpetrated it. But Bruce, if you just have him come talk to us, you know. Sometimes I know it's very reactive, our police enforcement, but until we can get to stem the tide, we've got to get folks out there. And I think looking at some very serious enforcement for some of these trouble areas and that we're popping up. And I know sometimes it's related to gangs, but if you can schedule the chief, that would be wonderful. Thank you.
Director Webb.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and thank you, Director Hendricks, for your remarks and everybody else. I'm not going to be repetitive, but I do want to say that we've spoken to Baker Curris about making a presentation, and we can probably get that sooner rather than later. And if you want to just give me a suggestion on when we want Baker to come, I'll.
Director, he did respond and said
I saw that.
he would let us know, so I'm sure, and we can call him and see if he's narrowed down.
Well, I think the situation is a little bit more urgent now for him to come. And I'm also glad that you brought this up because I think people are really looking to us not to have all the answers, but to show leadership and to get people engaged and to start looking to, in a more cohesive way, to really attack this. It isn't one problem, it's multiple problems. And so, Bruce, do you want to call Baker or do you
Sure,
want
I
me
will.
to call him? Okay.
I just wanted to do a follow-up on Director Webb. She's asked us to do a review of the truancy issue in this area, and we spent a couple of months for finishing up the report. But the most damning statistic is that 5 of the youth involved this weekend were truants and on our truancy dockets.
And let me just add to that issue. You know, we have attempted to try and change the truancy laws and met opposition in the legislature on this issue. If you can keep kids in school, you've got a chance with them. Director Hendricks, you're exactly right. The issue of the inordinate amount of disconnected youth and adults, black-on-black crime. This is a national issue. It's not just a Little Rock issue. We spend a lot of time. I spend a lot of time with colleagues on the issues, whether it's the My Brother's Keeper initiative or Cities United initiative, looking at best practices. Baltimore just recently passed a very aggressive curfew ordinance, and so that's something that I think we are a little bit, I think we're lax on it, frankly. I mean, I think the police officers have a lot of things to do, and that's not the highest priority probably on the street. However, you have young people. I made the comment, a 15-year-old that can have a 9mm and decide he's going to steal somebody's purse and uses a gun. You've got to ask yourself, where are the parents, where are the caregivers as it relates to this? I've asked Mr. Moore, now that these two suspects are apprehended, I really want to understand and get the background on these individuals to find out where these gaps are and why we, the issue of how we spend our money. And, I know everybody wants to take and we want to beat ourselves up on this because we're frustrated about how to do something on this. And, as a city, I can tell you in comparison to other cities, the fact that we spend and have spent anywhere from $3 million to $5.5 million a year over the last 22 years is a unique situation for cities. And that's why I know many of us are frustrated about the issue of whether we're accomplishing what we want to accomplish. And so I'm all for going back and revisiting how we do that and trying to figure out a better way to interdict these kids that are at risk, that are the ones where we find ourselves crying out loud for not only the victims of the families, the Lopez family and the other two victim families that we had over the weekend, but also for the families of these suspects who I'm sure didn't wake up that morning thinking that their relatives are going to go out there and kill somebody. So again, I know everyone up here is very sincere about it, and I think certainly we've got to engage the community, and we got to figure out how to get this community more engaged in reaching out to their kids and trying to assist. It's not something that this board has the power to change, by just simply throwing money at it, and that's going to be the challenge: is finding effective programs that hopefully are doing as good a job as we can. Now, as we talk about the bad weekend, our city staff and everybody's been working hard on these issues of crime, and when you have these flare-ups, it brings attention to it. I know the chief is going to give us a report in a couple of weeks, but you're going to hear that, that we had the lowest rate of Part 1 crimes filed to the FBI in 30 years. So we're making progress. We had a 32% reduction in homicides between last year and the year before. But that doesn't excuse the problem and the challenge, which is with our young people. So let's continue this dialogue and see if we can't come up with some effective programs that are going to help to address our young people in the streets. Vice Mayor Hines, did you? Okay.
Mayor, on the legislative front within the state, I know that sometimes we're unsuccessful because smaller communities in the state don't want legislation applied to them. I know that we've had some carve-out legislation done with language that restricts the legislation to cities or municipalities over 100,000. I think we've probably got some legislators for the city of Little Rock that would be willing to sponsor some type of legislation. You think we could get together on coming up with that, and I'll work on finding some sponsorship within our local delegation.
I think, and I'm sure we.
I mean, we had one of our state senators who represents Little Rock in here tonight.
We'd have to flesh out exactly what it is that. One of the biggest challenges we've got, and you've seen the inconsistency out of the state on the issue of our parolees, while we've been talking about young people, we've got a ton of parolees here that are not reporting in an inordinate amount, and the state's into dealing with numbers and beds. They're not into the issue of looking at a municipality's public safety in that regard. I mean, they're into trying to manage money and manage beds and the logistics of that, and we're into trying to do public safety. So when they get kicked out of there and there's not enough parole officers to keep up with these people, and if you read just recently, an entire flip. Now, if a person gets arrested, a parolee gets arrested on a new offense, a nonviolent offense, they will not be brought in for a revocation hearing until after the prosecutor prosecutes the new case. And I can tell you, having been the prosecutor, that means that person's either going to stay in the jail and load up our jail, or he's going to they'll make a bond. So you got a parolee arrested on another nonviolent felony, making a bond, and it'll take anywhere from 6 months to a year and a half for that case to be tried. In the meantime, they're out on the streets, and that is a serious problem. So what we had before with the Darnell Dennis case was the fact that then the parole, the Department of Corrections would have everybody brought in for a parole revocation hearing. Now they flipped that back the other way again, unless it's a violent felony. They're not going to do parole revocations until after that new case is completed. Wow. And so, again, we're going to be in a cycle here pretty soon where this thing is going to expand again, and I can just tell you it's an extraordinarily frustrating issue. So, Lance, yes, we need to have something done about some of those, or try and make sure that we get smart. I mean, we've had our capital city crime prevention task force meeting and are going to be coming up. We've got a couple more meetings left before we complete our work, and we're going to be coming up with some recommendations. I hope that they'll be taken seriously, and that some of them will be legislative in terms of what can happen. So, okay, well, Director Hancock, I'm sorry, I kind of went on a little long
Mr.
there.
Carpenter, back in the 90s, we put in some laws pertaining to curfews and young people when they was out and everything. We had young people coming down here objecting to us, making them stay home. I would like for you to go back and look at those laws that we enacted, and maybe we need to make them stay home.
Director Hancock, Little Rock was, I think, the first city in the country to have a daytime curfew during the school year. It's been emulated in other cities, and we're making arrests on that on a weekly, if not a daily basis, because it gives us an opportunity to deal with the youth who otherwise would be limited to the juvenile court system, which can take 6 months just for plea and arraignment.
I would like for you to bring those figures to us, and I want to know that once we get those parents in court, what are we doing with them? How strict are we on them? And maybe we need to do, as Director Hendricks, maybe we need to tighten them up as tight as we can do it until this goes away again.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you.
Director Hancock, let me just be clear. So you're going to get the statistics on the number of daytime curfew arrests that we've had over the last year, last 12 months?
Yes, and then also he's going to go back and look at what we did in the 90s to curfew some of these kids.
Okay. Director Campuris.
Well, like everybody, I was shocked and saddened when I read the paper. And, Irma, I appreciate your honesty in being able to state what the real problem is. And I'll have to tell you that 22 years ago, when we passed the PIT money, and Les Hollingsworth warned us that you needed to do this, that it is a great idea, and it is the right thing to do. We're just not doing it right. We honestly pander to people that shouldn't be pandered to. We give to organizations that don't have results. We never think outside the box. We never look at an issue without being politically correct, and we can't keep doing that. And as we move forward, we have to start thinking that we've spent 20-plus years and how many millions of dollars. And I was, Sunday, I was truly saddened thinking we have squandered that money. And we might be worse off than we were if we hadn't done it. But we have to look at this problem honestly and not think about being politically correct about it. We have to give this group money or we're not giving this group money. We have to think if you don't produce and you don't make a difference and you don't start doing the right thing, we're not going to give you money, or then it's our problem. And the I is just what Joan said. I failed, and that's what and that's what my disposition is going to be forward as we look at this problem.
Director Hendricks?
I want to thank you all for the discussion, which means that we will move forward. And I will be, Mayor, could I ask you if you would contact the all legislators, but particularly the black legislators over there, because I don't hear anything from them either. And, I talk about them too, Yeah, it's just not fair. But again, thanks for the conversation, and we really need to do something.
Director Kazort?
Thanks, Mayor, and I certainly echo everything everybody else has said here. I want to speak to point out that we're talking right now about crimes committed by youth with guns, but our shootings in Little Rock are not all crimes committed by youth with guns, and some of our other shootings occurred because somehow in society we've gotten to the point, or people have gotten to the point, that they determined the best way to resolve an argument is with a firearm. And I don't know how we got, or people got to that point, but it is another issue that psychologically, I don't know, we probably can't deal with, but it's another issue out there that somehow is going to take a change in the people's thinking to realize that's not how to resolve a dispute. So it's more than just the crime with guns. It's resolving disputes with guns that we've got to deal with.
Director Webb?
Thank you, and this is just one more question on some information I'd like to get. I had lunch with a district judge recently who told me that there was a very high percentage of people who were supposed to have community service who didn't bother to show up. And I wondered if we could find out what that percentage is, because this does also go to the point of a societal issue that if you just think, well, I've got community service, but I don't have to bother to show up because nothing's going to happen. I'd just like to know the number, and if that is an accurate statement that the judge made. I guess, Bruce. Thank you. That's it.
Judge Fleming, I think, has some strong numbers on that.
That's who told me.
Director Wright?
I have just a few more comments, Mayor. I want to, first of all, thank you, Director Campiris, for acknowledging it's time for us to look at this thing a little bit differently. You're basically echoing what I've been saying since 2007, when I could not see any results in Ward 6 with the youth. And I thank you because that's one of the things that motivated me to get involved with trying to get the kids off the street out there, because I did not see anything taking place. And we just got to make better use of the resources that we have. And I agree with the mayor. Most cities would kill to have the budget that we have for this particular issue. Not kill. And I want to stay with the state for you all's information that I will be in the near future, when I can get on her schedule, meeting with Ms. Sheila Sharp. She is with the Department of Community Corrections, I believe. Arkansas Community Corrections, sorry. I'm meeting with her about some ideas that I have to help lessen the impact on all these parolees needing housing and moving into neighborhoods that are going to panic our residents. So I will be meeting with her as soon as I can get on her schedule, and I'm going to ask them hard questions about their intent, because I think right now it's an unknown. We know that they have mandates that they have to meet, and now that the mayor is saying that, they flipped some things back, now that things have calmed down, that's of a concern for me. So I do want you all to know that I will be having that meeting.
Director Adcock?
Yes, I have two other subjects if we're about through on this, but I also.
Before you do that,
I also would like to tell Director Campiris or Director Hines, whichever one brought it up, that last night, State Representative Love said he was ready to take an active part in helping find solutions and to solve our problems.
Yeah, Sheila Sharp is part of our Capital City Crime Prevention Task Force, and she has been very loyal in attending, and she's one of the good guys, if you will. as it relates to that. She doesn't pass the laws, and she doesn't make the laws. She's got to try and respond to those issues. And so I do feel for her as it relates to this. And, she's the one that has to try and look for the funds and to hire the parole officers that, get burnt out after about 60 days. And so it's a real challenge on that level. But I think all of the comments that have been made tonight show that there's an expression to try and open up the door again and look in and see what we can do in a better way. And with that kind of dedication, I hope we can make a change. Brad made a very good point about, and Bruce, if you would, I know that the police department have the capability of doing this from a statistical standpoint, but I think it would be important information to look at the last 3 years of our homicides and to give us a profile on age, gender, race, and the type of incident. I've seen some of this information already, and I want the board to see some of it, but I know that a third of our homicides last year were domestic violence related, meaning it was either a spouse or ex-boyfriend or girlfriend, or it was a brother or a sister, it was a relative, and the point that has been made is that these people are settling their domestic disputes with a gun. And I think that data would be very helpful for us as we begin to try and fashion our responses to these things. Pardon?
Race.
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, we got a format we keep that.
Right. I think we can put that together. Okay. All right. Well, thank you all very much for your comments on this
Excuse me.
matter.
Okay, I've
I'm sorry. Go ahead, Director Adcock. I just hit your button accidentally.
got dogs tonight, so now we're going to talk about chickens. Right, Mayor, chickens. Tomorrow night, the Animal Village Advisory Board is going to have a public hearing discussing chickens. We have had lots of complaints from different parts of town that some people have too many chickens, they're not cleaning up after the chickens, they're not keeping them caged, and they're running down the streets. And so we're going to look at, we've got public hearing, we're going to look at if we want to say so many chickens in a yard, so many square feet in the yard. Also, we've got complaints that my neighborhood people do not want roosters. And so we are also going to look at where do we allow roosters to live, where do we not allow them to live. So we're inviting the public to come out, those that like chickens and those that don't like chickens. And we want to hear from you and find out exactly what the neighborhoods want in having chickens in their neighborhoods. That's my first thing. The second thing, Scott, can you get a picture of this? Can't get a picture of this. The Animal Village is going to be the host to a birthday party. It's Catherine's birthday party. Catherine's going to be 11 years old. She's a special needs child that is in a wheelchair. And what Catherine wants for her birthday is a big birthday party. So she's going to have a birthday party on February the 13th from 1 to 3. Everyone in the city is invited to Catherine's birthday party. If you can't come, we're asking you to please send a birthday card or a Valentine that we can present to Catherine at her party. Catherine is going to the Children's Hospital in March for a very serious operation, and her family wanted to carry out her wish for a special birthday party this year. So all children, all adults, everyone in Little Rock and around the city, around the other cities, is invited to Catherine's birthday party. If not, send a birthday card or a Valentine to the Little Rock Animal Village to Catherine at 4500 Kramer Street in Little Rock, 72204. So all of the board tonight has filled out their Valentines for Catherine, and we're asking all the school children and all the other people in Little Rock to please send Catherine a birthday card. Also, Catherine has asked if you would like to send a toy or food to the Animal Village for the dogs and cats. She would like to share her birthday with them. So please remember Catherine. She's a very, very special child. Thank you.
There is a motion to recess until next Tuesday with a second for the purpose of conducting the annual evaluations of the city manager and the city attorney. All in favor of the motion for recess indicate by saying aye. Opposed say nay. We're in recess then.